Okay, good Zevachim everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the learning of Torah Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, as we're sponsored by Baruch Ian, Lila Nishmas, Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba, Esther Bas Yona, Avram Ben Shmuel HaKoyin, Lufur Shalema Feliba Bas Anya. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry. We're sponsored by, for the spiritual, emotional, and physical protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel Ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We're sponsored by Berish Gesselmer for Shalema for Shoshana Bas Adina Chana. Was sponsored by Shalom Fogli, Linishmas Yaakov Zev Ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas God, Yosef Ben Siyam Ben Yaakov Zev, and for a great shidduch for Chaya Tzivya Bas Shoshana Gittel. We're sponsored by Mark Frankel in loving memory of his father, Yisrael Tzvi Ben Chaim Yeshua Falik. Okay, we're going to need tonight's shir. Let me tell you something about tonight's shir. Tonight's shir, the concepts are not hard at all. What's difficult about tonight's shir is we're dealing with psukim about all different types of karbanos. Generally, we're dealing with the karbanos that are done inside, in the Kodesh. And they are the par of the Kohen Gadol, the par of Yom Kippur, the par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur when the Bezdin makes a mistake, and the Sor L'Avodah Zarah, the Sor brought for a case of a mistake about idolatry, and we're going to be learning details from one to the other. And what's going to be a little confusing is to carry, the Gemara doesn't always say clearly which carbon we're talking about. So that's going to be what's a little bit complicated with tonight's daf. We are holding by Matan Arba Minayin, 3 lines from the top of Daf Mem Amud Aleph. Matan Arba Minayin. So here is a perfect example that we said by the karbanos that are done inside, that every application is necessary, and if you don't do one of the applications, it invalidates. So we know that's true about the 7 that are done against the paroiches, because it says that 7 is always ma'akiv also by leprosy and by the paraduma. Matan arba minayin. How do we know this is true also with the 4 placements on the 4 corners of the golden altar? Talmud Leimer, it says, Kain Yaseh, so shall you do. And that teaches us that it's essential. So the Gemara says, I don't understand, why do I need the extra Kain Yaseh? We said about the 7 applications that they are repeated. Maishna Matan Zayin, the Ksiva Nukfilon, the 7 placements against the paroiches is said once and then repeated. And therefore, once it's repeated, we know it's mandatory, it's la'akev. Well, Matan Dalanamik Ksiva Nukfilon, the 4 placements on the 4 corners is also stated and repeated. Says the Gemara, Am Rab Yirmiyah lo nitzcha el Rab Shimon. You see, according to Rab Shimon, it doesn't say 4. The Tanya Lamaila, here again, here's an example of what's challenging of this Gemara. Lamala, above. Now it doesn't say what is above, but this is the Par Kohen Mashiach, the bull of the Kohen Mashiach. It says above Kronos, which we darshan Lamaila Amar Keren u Kronos. So Keren is 1, Kronos is 2. That's Shtayim. Lamatu Omer, by the Par Helm Davar Shel Tzibur, that's the par of the sin of the majority of Klal Yisrael following the erroneous decision of Bezdin. Omer Keren u Kronos. So that's 2. Arba. So Divrei Reb Shimon. So it doesn't say 4 by any one of them. Right? It doesn't say 4 by any one of them. Reb Yehuda says no. We we know 4 by each one because it says Oyel Moed, and that means all the placements done in the Oyel Moed. Reb Yudaima Einot Tzarech, you don't need to learn it out from the extra pasuk of Kain Yaseh, because Hari Uaymer Oyel Moed, Al Kola Amar B'Oyel Moed, when it says Kronos, it means all the corners in the Oyel Moed, all the corners in the Kodesh, and there are 4 corners in the Kodesh. So what does he do with Kain Yaseh? Rabbi Yehuda Kain Yaseh Me'avidlei Mibaylei L'Kedisanya L'Fi Shaloi L'Manu L'Par Yom HaKippurim. We don't have a source for the bull that's brought on Yom Kippur. That's the one that's done in the Kodesh Kodashim, and also in the Paraychis, and also in the Mizbeh Hazav. We don't have a source for the Par Yom HaKippurim L'Smicha U'Shyori Adam, that we have to lean on the animal and that the remnants of the blood goes to the base. Minayin, that's what we learn out. Talmud Kain Yaseh. Says Gemara, I don't understand. Ula Par Yom HaKippurim Lo Lamadu. We don't have a source for the power of Yom Kippur, but we said we said earlier that it says the extra lapar. That extra lapar comes to include Zepar Yom HaKippurim. So we do have a source. Says Gemara, no, that only told us essential avodas, like the hazois, like the sprinklings. It's that's only essential services, the blood applications. But smicha and the pouring of the blood, the pouring of the remnants, that is not essential, I would not include. Therefore, Kamash Malan, it says Kain Yaseh, to include the smicha and the pouring of the remnants for the power of Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara Reb Shimon, who says that it doesn't say the full 4 corners by each one, because he doesn't darshan B'Oyel Moed for that. What does he do with the words B'Oyel Moed? Reb Shimon, hi B'Oyel Moed, my Avidlei. What does he do with B'Oyel Moed? B'Oyel Moed me'B'Oyel she'im niftacha tikra shel heichal, that if there was a breach in the roof of the Kodesh, so that you didn't have over you the Oyel Moed. Oyel means the covering of the Moed. Lo Yoyamazet, they wouldn't be able to sprinkle. It mandates Oyel Moed. V'idach, he learns that out from the extra word Asher. V'idach Asher Lo Darish, and the other one doesn't hold that we Kedarshin Asher for that drasha. Abaya Amar, as we move along. And remember that if it's a little bit challenging, it's even more rewarding, because Lefum Tzara Agra. Abaya Amar, Abaya says, Rabbi Yehuda Nami Yitzrach. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we also need the drasha of Kain Yaseh, even though it says Oyel Moed. Because so I might have thought that maybe we should compare the 4 placements on the corners to smicha and shori adam. Midei dehavei smicha shori adam. The afal gav the ksivon ukfelon, even though they're written and doubled. Loi ma'akva. So I might think that matan arba nami loy tisakev. I might think that the 4 placements on the 4 corners is also not ma'akev. Kamosh Malan, that it is. Now, lapar, it says that the extra word lapar, zepar yom HaKippurim. So now the question is, what do we learn from the extra word? Lamay hilchasa. Ila akev, if it's coming to tell you that the blood applications are essential and they disqualify if you don't do all the blood applications. Remember, we said there are code words, and one of the code words is chukah. Wherever it says it's a chukah, it's a statute, you must do it. So the Gemara says, why do I need any extra drasha of lapar? It says that everything is ma'akev because it uses the code word chukah. Ila akev pshita Chuka ksiva bei. It says a statute, which means, remember I told you certain code words. If it says chuka, if it says kocha, if it says hu b'av yosa yehei, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, lo nitzcha el Rabbi Yehuda. Your Rabbi Yehuda says that the word chuka is only reserved for the avodas done by the Kohen Gadol with the white vestments in the Kodesh Kodashim. He did things in the Kodesh Kodashim. He took the blood and he sprayed it bein abadim, between the poles of the Aron, achas l'mala v'sheva l'mata. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak lo nitzcha el Rabbi Yehuda da'amar kiksi v'chuka advarim anasim b'bigdei lovin b'fnim. Only that which the Kohen Gadol did with the white vestments in the Kodesh Kodashim. Here, b'fnim means all the way inside, in the Kodesh Kodashim. She'im hikta ma'aseh l'chaveiroi, if he does it out of chronological order, lo asav lo klum, it's no good. He has to do everything in the proper chronological order. The bull first, then the goat, everything in proper chronological order. Aval dvar manasim b'bigdei lovin b'chutz, but things that are done with the white vestments just in the Kodesh, against the paroiches on the Mizbeach Hazav, hikta ma'aseh l'chaver, if you do it out of order, masha asa asa. I would think that maybe if you do it out of order, it's good. I might think that if you don't do it at all, it's also good. Maybe azos nami loy ma'akve. If you're missing one of the applications, it also doesn't invalidate. Kamash Malon, that's what we learn out from the word lapar. Says the Gemara, is this what Rabbi Yehuda does with lapar? We have a problem from another source. This is really like a Talmudic jigsaw puzzle. Maskav Papa, Umi Matzis Amrit Hachi. Can you say that Rabbi Yehuda needs lapar for this? Vatanya, we learned in the Brisa, it says v'chila mi kaper es hakodesh, and then the kohen finishes from atoning in the holy. And Rabbi Kiva darshans im keeper kila. If he atones, he finishes. That means if he did all the applications, he finishes. V'im lo keeper lo kila. If he didn't atone, he didn't finish. So he learns from there that you have to do the whole thing. Divrei Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Yehuda says, why are you taking the pasuk out of its chronological order? It doesn't say v'keeper v'chila. It says v'chila mikaper. Rather, Amal Rabbi Yehuda mipnei la'aloi nemer im kila. If you finish, keeper. V'im loy kila. If you don't finish, loy keeper. Now that comes to include even the remnant of the blood. But the bottom line is we see that he learns that it's ma'ake from v'chila mikaper es hakodesh. He doesn't need lapar. Amra Papa, you're right. You're right. You know why it says lapar, according to Rabbi Yehuda? For 3 expositions that we're going to teach that applies even to the Yom Kippur bull. What are the 3 expositions? Lo nitzcha el es badom ubetfila. There's 3 drushes. Es, badom, and betfila. What do we learn out from Es? Es. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov lo nitzcha el lahachshir amin shebe'emtza. That if Yitzi, our resident Kohen, if he's wearing a glove, of course the blood application is no good. But what if he has a blister on his finger? He's doing the application with his forefinger, and he has a blister on his finger. So we learn out, because it says S, which it includes even that which is tuffled to the finger, that if he has a blister on the finger, it's not an interposition. Now it says badam, could have said bidam. What's badam? Sheyehei bidam shir tefila meikara. That when he does the dippings, there should be in the clay shares enough blood for all the dippings from the get-go. And what's the drasha of a toval? That he has to dip? That's coming to teach me that he has to dip and not sponge it with his finger from the side wall. The toval v'loy misafek. Now these are the three, we're going to see these are the three drashas of es, badom, and v'toval, which we're going to say that we're going to learn out for the par Yom Kippurim from the extra word lapar. Now, we need to say all of these drashas. As the Gemara says, and welcome Daniel, as we're holding 2 lines from the top of Mem Amid Beis, 2 lines from the top of Daf Mem Amid Beis. And by the way, the fact that we already turned the page is Kfitzas Haderech. You know, it's Kfitzas Haderech like it's unbelievable, right? Just like, you know, we believe that Eddie is in Richmond, Virginia. It's unbelievable that we already turned the page. Now, v'itzrich lemichtav badam, the ikas rachman v'toval dip in havamina. I might think, even if in the beginning you don't have the full amount of blood, afal gav that the lekashir tefillah meikara. But even badam, I would think that you could sponge it off the wall of the keli. Therefore, now, the pasuk says that you apply it to the mizbach ketoris hasamen, the altar of the incense. Now, since we're in the Kodesh, we know it's the altar of incense. Why does it have? That's the only altar that's inside. The Mizbech Hazav is the altar that we smoke up in the incense in the morning and the afternoon. Why does it have to say Mizbach Keteris Hasamim Lomali? That's to tell me that if there should be that there was a new Mizbeach and they didn't inaugurate it yet with incense, then they can't make the blood applications on it. If they didn't inaugurate it yet at least one time with the incense, they couldn't make the applications upon the altar. Now, remember Rav Papa said that we learn out from Lepar to the Parashal Yom Kippurim that the lessons of Es, Badam, and V'tova. So now the Gemara says, Tanya Kavase de Rav Papa, and the Raya will be from Rebbe. Tanya Kavase de Rav Papa. It says in the parasha of the Parahalam Dover Tzibur, V'asa kasher asa, you should do like you did by the power of the Kohen Gadol. Ma'atal Meloima Lapar. Why does it say Lapar? L'Rabbis Par Yom Kippurim L'Kol Masha Amar Ba'inyan. To include for the Par Yom Kippurim that also to the now the Gemara is learning to what we said Es Badam and the Taval to the Par Yom Kippurim as well. Divrei Rebbe. I'm Rabbi Shmuel. Now Rabbi Shmuel takes us on a journey of a Kal V'Chaimer, and he uses enigmatic, cryptic terminology, which we will not know initially what he's talking about. Kal V'Chaimer. Uma b'makom shelo yhoshvu carbon l'carbon. In a case where the two carbonates are not the same species, but one is a par and one is a soir. Hishve maisim l'maisim, the procedures are the same. Makom shehishve carbon l'carbon, where one carbon is like the other carbon, they're both parim. And you know, didn't she yishve maisim l'maisim? Surely the procedure should be the same. What does Lapar come to teach me? Because I don't need it for Yom Kippurim. Because we'll learn out the Par Yom Kippurim from the Par Kohen Gadol through this Kal V'Chaimer. So it's not coming to tell me the Par Yom Kippurim. Rather, Zeh Par Helam Dover Shel Tzibur. That's the power of an erroneous mistake of the community. And then it says again, la par, ze par koyin Mashiach. That refers to the par koyin Mashiach, the par when the koyin sins. Now, none of this is clear. We don't know what's going on. So that's why we need an Amar Mar. Amar Mar says that we're going to now analyze this. Amar Mar. Uma b'makom shlo yehushvu carbon l'carbon, madach where one carbon is not the same as another carbon. So what two carbonas are we talking about over here? My lo yehushvu carbon l'carbon, ilema the par yom kippurim v'sa'ir yom kippurim, the two carbonas that are brought into the Kodesh Kodashim, the par of Yom Kippur and the sar, the one twin goat. That's also its blood are brought into the Kodesh Kodashim, and we're going to learn out from them even though they're not the same. You can't learn out from them because they're unique and they're the only ones that go into the Kodesh Kodashim. They're the only karbanos that go into the Kodesh Kodashim, so forget about learning out anything from them. Ella, what are the two karbanos that are dissimilar? The power of the erroneous mistake of Bezdin, and the soyer if Bezdin makes an erroneous mistake about idolatry. Now they're not the same. Says again, you can't learn out from them. Because in both those cases, the Aveira is known, whether it's the one that Bezdin made a mistake about, or whether it's the one that Avodah Zarah. So it can't be that either. So rather, what's Rabbi Yishmael using as his base for his Kal V'chaimer? Ela par helam davar shel tzibur, the bull of a mistake, erroneous mistake of Sanhedrin, and the sar shel Yom Kippur, and the sar, the goat of Yom Kippur. You can't say, well, the sar of Yom Kippur is brought inside because the par helam davar is not brought inside. You can't say the par helam davar shel tzibur, the chait is known because the sar shel Yom Kippur, the chait is not known. It's mechaper for when you didn't know about Tumah. And what's the Kal V'chaimer? Over there, the two carbonas are not the same. One is a par, and one is a sar, the high par. The high sar, hushvu maisim l'maisim, their procedures are the same. Now, of course, their procedures are not all the same, because the sar shel Yom Kippur is brought into Kodesh Kodashim and the par isn't. But it means that what procedures they do are mandatory. As the Gemara says, "L'may dekasavu, makom shehushvu carbon l'carbon." The Kohen Gadol's chatas and the par Yom Kippurim, they're both a par. Makom shehushvu, the high par, einay din shehushvu ma'asim l'ma'asim, and therefore Rabbi Yishmael argues that we wouldn't need lepar to tell me the par Yom Kippurim. And therefore we will be able through this argument to derive the par Yom Kippurim also for es badam v'tvila from the par koyin Mashiach, from the par koyin Gadol. And it says by the par koyin Gadol these drushes, and we'll say it's hushvu maisim to the par of Yom Kippur, that it also has halacha that even if there's a blister on his forefinger, it's good, and you have to have the full share of the blood, and you cannot sponge it. Now, how do we know v'asalei sar Yom Kippurim misirei avodas kechavim mikal v'chaimer? And we'll say that this is true by the sar Yom Kippurim from the sar of avodah zara from a kal v'chaimer, because if it's true where they are not the same, then it's surely true where they are the same. They're both Se'irim. Now, we're going to stop here and pick it up momentarily.